So good day everyone, my name is Nyimas Gabriella Dwi Gensi from Diplomacy 4. Today I would like to explain more about the theoretical framework of my case, Sweden's effort to improve gender equality in international aspect through the Swedish Feminist foreign policy in the scope time 2014 until 2020. And you can see here is the conceptual diagram. The first is IV, the Swedish Feminist foreign policy, and the IV is improving gender equality in international aspect, and the relation between IV and IV is feminist constructivism and also the liberal feminist. And for the conceptual definition of IV, feminist foreign policy is the policy of a state that defines its interaction with other state and movement in manner that prioritize gender equality and enshrines the human rights of women and other traditionally marginalized groups, allocate significant resource to achieve that vision and seek through its implementation to disrupt patriarchal and male-dominated power structure across all of its levels of influence, informed by the voice of feminist activists, groups, and movement. And for the operational definition of independent variable, Swedish feminist foreign policy can be measured by the working method that called as 3R. The three overall focal point is the first, rights, human rights, also women rights. Every woman must have equal right with men. For the example, like the rights in equality of inheritance, right in position, education, health, and even in socialization. This attempts to eliminate gender discrimination in social life. And the second is representation. Representation intends to target women and participate in decision-making tables with the intention of representing women to determine whether women are allocated resource or are treated the same as men. And the last is resources. Resources means how the resources are allocated between men and women. And the next is conceptual definition of dependent variable. Gender equality arises because of the term of gender inequality, which is a hierarchical gender relationship, where the existence of men rise above women and women are always considered less valuable or inappropriate in everything. Gender equality itself means that the men and women have the same position or condition for human rights in contributing to economic, social, and political aspects. Gender equality means not discriminating between sex to provide justice in social life. And the next is operational definition of dependent variable. How to measure the gender equality by using 5 different index, which is gender-related development index or GDI. The second is gender empowerment measure or GEM. The next is gender equity index or GEI. And the next is gender gap index. And the last is social institution and gender index, or you may known as SYGI. For the relationship between IV and IV, like I already said before in the structural diagram, I choose feminist constructivism and liberal feminism. For feminist constructivism is an international relation theory which builds upon the theory of constructivism. Feminist constructivism focuses upon the study of how ideas about gender influence the global politics. Is it the communication between two post-colonial theories like feminism and constructivism, and how they both share similar key ideas in creating gender equality globally. I choose this theory because we know that how Sweden to try influence their feminist foreign policy to improve the gender equality internationally. And the second is liberal feminism. Liberal feminism advocates that women are rational beings, thus they have the right to choose and shape their personal and socio-political autonomy. And for the last is scope and limitation of study. I choose the 2014 until 2020 because become the time frame of the case, because the growing and impact of the Swedish feminist foreign policy happened in that time. The Swedish feminist foreign policy declared by Sweden at October 2014. Sweden also launched their handbook that mentions 6 external objectives in the 2015 until 2018 action plan and handbook Swedish feminist foreign policy 2019 until 2022. that will focus on the plan, set out the direction that work on FP feminist foreign policy on 2020. The scope will explain that start from the Swedish feminist foreign policy launch until the 5 years of implementation. And the Swedish feminist foreign policy become a role as a feminist country on European countries, although there are still pros and cons to the feminist foreign policy that adopted by Sweden. France is involved in implementing gender equality in a French international strategy, also updating their gender and international assistance policy in 2018. European Parliament have agenda where majority chooses gender equality in European Union's foreign and security policies in 2020. So that's all from my presentation today. Thank you, and if you have any question, please drop your question in that comments.